Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Orla, and in this channel I read short stories for children and adults who are interested. In today's video I'll be reading another story from Girls Who Slay Monsters, a book by Ellen Ryan, illustrated by Shona Shirley MacDonald. So, get cozy, cuddle down, and let's begin. This story is called Levan, the Immortal Mermaid. Levan was a mortal princess of Ulster. With wind-blown sandy hair, she often ran barefoot and joyful through Loch Ness wetlands. Levan lived with her father, the large and bearded King Eochaid. Their home was built with narrow reeds on the banks of the vast loch. The loch was known to be a doorway to the outer world, so Eochaid taught his daughter to fear the water. Never swim in the loch, Levan. There are magical forces below the surface that might suck you down. Never be seen again. Levan listened to his eerie warning and did as she was told. She made herself content in the wetlands, safely playing with her best friend, a little dog with a yip-yip bark. Together they chased hooper swans through soggy meadows, caught dancing damselflies in the reeds, and hid among the swamp cypresses. Life doesn't get better than this, Levan would often say to her little dog. But one wet winter, after weeks of heavy rain, the loch swelled and broke its banks, rapidly flooding Levan's delicate reed house. Within minutes the water swallowed up her house and everyone inside. Completely submerged, Levan went into shock. She sank head over heels down through the water and couldn't tell which way was up. Levan somehow managed to pull her beloved dog under one arm and drag herself over sunken furniture to an air pocket in one chamber of her home. She could breathe now, but was trapped under water. Faced with death, Levan had a strange thought. She wished she was a fish so she could swim away. Suddenly she choked and gasped as the oxygen in the air pocket seemed to be running out. Her lungs began to burn, all around her grew dark, and she started to lose consciousness, sliding deeper down into the water. All she could hear was the beat of her own heart. Levan wasn't sure how much time had passed before she opened her eyes. She was in her bedroom, alive and breathing perfectly well, but she was still underwater. Panicked, she thrashed and flailed her arms, but then she caught sight of her legs, or where her legs should have been, as in their place was now a long salmon tail. Astonished, the princess gently touched the silver glistening scales, and in her stomach she had gills too, just like a fish. Her wish had come true. A cute little otter with a yip-yip bark swam excitedly up beside her. Levan knew in her heart that he was her dog and had held him close, grateful to still have a friend. Barely able to believe her own eyes, Levan and her otter swam around the house. They spent a long time searching for Eochaid in and around her submerged home. Sadly, she found many servants, their eyes closed forever. but her father was gone. Perhaps he managed to escape. It was all she could hope for. Levan and her otter left the house to explore the vastness of the loch. Here, deep under the water, it was brighter and warmer than she expected. A giant trout swam near them, and to her great amazement, he spoke to both of them. "There are all sorts of strange creatures down here," he said. "What are you then?" I think I'm a mermaid," she said, surprised to hear herself speak his fishy language. "Will you tell me, please, how do I get back to land? I need to find my father." The trout used its tail to point the way, and the princess soon reached the surface. She stuck her head out of the water and peered back towards the land, wondering how she could ever live there again with a fish tail for legs. The life she had and everyone in it was gone, and she might never get back to see her father again. I'll show you. It's a good picture. This is Levan. Her little otter, her best friend. And she's a mermaid. Levan had never felt so frightened or alone. For a whole year, the mermaid lived in the watery wreck of her old home. Each morning, she foraged herself a breakfast of waterwort and marsh pea. Then she rose to the surface and looked out to shore in the hope of seeing her father. One day Levan tried to call out his name and discovered she had a beautiful singing voice. All along the shores of Loch Ness, sailors and fisher folk heard her homesick song, so haunting and sweet it lulled them to sleep. But Achaid never answered her call. Mortals began searching for the mysterious singer and cast nets into the water, hoping to catch her. So she had to flee from her home. The mermaid and her otter said goodbye to Loch Ness forever and swam out to sea. Out in the open ocean, the strong currents tossed Levan about like a rag doll. The princess was sick of being pushed around. The water had taken her father, and clearly it wanted her too. But she'd survived when her house had flooded, and she wasn't going to give up now. "Do your worst," she cried. "Sea of Scotland and Ireland, you cannot harm me." Levan torpedoed to the surface, grabbed the biggest wave and threw herself onto its back as if it were a horse. She tamed the wave. The currents flowed obediently about her now, easing her movements through the sea. From that day on, the mermaid fully embraced her fish form, swimming among salmon and exploring the ocean. Even when her pet otter finally died of old age, leaving her lonely, Levan accepted what she couldn't change and tried to be content with what she had. Until one day, Levan looked back on her life and realised she'd been a mermaid for over 300 years. In all that time, she hadn't aged by a single day. She was immortal. Levan couldn't understand how this could be. Wouldn't her father had to have been immortal too? The princess remembered that Loch Ness was said to be a doorway to the outer world. Had her father truly died, or had the current pulled him home? And if he was from the outworld, did that make her a goddess? Levan didn't have the answers, but whatever she was, it didn't change the fact that she still missed her father. Then, one day, Levan was on the sea surface, watching out for fishing nets, when a dark storm rolled in and the sea started to howl and crash. She was about to swim deep down for safety when she spotted a towering white wave coming towards her. It moved fast like a galloping horse, and on its back she could see a rider, a man with Eochaid's face. In an instant she knew why he was there. Eochaid was a god. And she was right. He'd been sucked down into the outer world. But here he was strong and magical enough to make his way back to Ulster. Leovan's heart leapt with joy. Father had returned to take her home. The end. That was a great story, fun. Girls Who Slay Monsters. Until the next one. Bye bye.